The village in it with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, you'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Rushcliffe, everybody, where this morning the weather doesn't seem to know what it wants to do. One minute it's nice bright sunshine, the next it's a little bit foggy. Well, I don't mind the fog, quite frankly, and in some ways it actually makes filming a little bit easier. So, it's going to be a mix of weathers as we go through this run this week. We're going to start this run with a village which is on the A52, and we're going to begin at an old pub. This is Elton on the Hill. Elton on the Hill, Ella's Hill Farm. Right folks, batten down the hatches. In total, Nottinghamshire has just 20 left at this point, 19 of them are in Rushcliffe and 12 of them are coming your way over the same number of days, starting with Elton on the Hill. Located within the Vale of Belvoir, just to the east of Wotton and west of Bottisford, Elton on the Hill straddles the A52. Although it's a tiny, sparsely populated settlement, it's got a few bits of interest, one of which is the former Manor Arms pub, which was sold and converted into residential accommodation in 2020. In Saxon times, this was Ailton, but was later referred to as Ollerton, not to be confused with the much larger town elsewhere in Nottinghamshire, of course. Making it distinctive are its collection of whitewashed houses with black paintwork. They were decorated as such in the early 20th century and led to Elton's rather appropriate nickname, the Magpie Village. Elton has never had a school, although a handful of pupils were taught privately at a house near Elton and Austin railway station in the 1960s. Nowadays, children usually attend the primary school in Austin and secondaries in Bingham, Bottisford or Nottingham. Elton is something of a go-to place when it comes to hospitality. It has at least two properties which provide accommodation for visitors to the Vale of Belvoir, these being the Grange Bed and Breakfast and the Vale of Belvoir Hotel. Let's have an early morning stroll and see what else we can find in this lovely, quiet little village here in Rushcliffe. We start with what was a former pub in the centre of the village. This was the Manor Arms, which closed around a decade ago now. It went on to become various restaurants, all of which failed over the subsequent years. It was latterly Elton cuisine, but today this building isn't serving food or drinks. In 2020, with the property vacant and not doing anything commercially, it was sold and converted into residential accommodation. There were plans to redevelop the car park at the junction of the A52 and Station Road. The proposals were to provide one 3-bed detached bungalow and a pair of 3-bed semis, all with their own gardens and parking spaces. Now, from east to west, Elton is a very linear village. Indeed, if you go along the A52, you blink and you miss it, it's really, really small. However, it's worth going north to south, which is what this route is going to do, because this is a more windy, more interesting route to get to the next village. Now, behind me there, you can see there's a set of gates, and that's the next thing to talk about. Should you go through these gates, you'd be heading down the drive of Elton Manor. Of course, we can't because it's private. That doesn't stop us talking about it though. The Manor House was originally built in the Adams style during the Georgian period, more or less the early 1730s. It was made of brick and had extensive grounds that ran to some 41 acres. It was demolished in 1935, although there are some remnants of it today. These include an 18th century gateway, a 19th century lodge, a gazebo and a brew house. The Manor House had many owners over the years, including Lieutenant Colonel Sir Henry Dennis Reed Bailey, who was knighted in 1918 for his work during World War I. Its last owner was William Parr, a Nottingham solicitor who found no economic use for it and tore it down. The Manor House is believed to have been one of the places where Evelyn Box, the prolific domestic servant, once worked. Evelyn Box was very well known in the area and ended up in Bottisford over the Leicestershire border. Commonly known as Eve, Box originally came from Bishop Sutton near Winchester in Hampshire, but moved to Aslockton between 1904 and 1911. Box worked at addresses in West Bridgford and the Vale of Belvoir. Her husband was a war hero, Arthur Marston. The pair married in 1921. Marston had served as a private in the 2nd Battalion of the Royal Berkshire Regiment. Just up the road from the Manor House we have St Michael and All Angels Church. This is Norman and was mentioned in the Domesday Book. In 1088, 2 years after the Domesday Survey, Channel favourite Roger de Busley granted the church to the Priory of Blythe. It looks a little different to how it did in those days. In 1786 its south aisle was demolished, and in the mid-1850s the whole building was restored and the tower was rebuilt. The new tower is made of brickwork and stucco to look like ashlar. Architectural experts have in the past described this church, somewhat cryptically, as Dove House topped. The tower contains 2 bells and a modern clock installed in 1969 in memory of William Parr and his wife Hilda. Both died in 1967. Remains of medieval stonework can be seen inside, particularly on the south side of the nave, including the arches which originally divided it from the now demolished south aisle. Also of note are its oak pews, which were a gift in the 1950s from the players of Wotton Manor. W.G. Player himself is buried in the southeastern corner of this churchyard. William Parr donated the oak panels. In 2017, this church merged with 5 others to become one ecclesiastical entity, the parish of Wyverton in the Vale. Now in the churchyard here you've got this marvellous tomb. It's all in Latin, this here, so I've got no chance of actually translating it because my Latin is absolutely terrible. But yeah, if anyone can translate that, I'd be appreciative in the comments down below. You probably can't read it from here. You'd have to come here yourself and have a look at it, wouldn't you? Okay, so now we're going to exit the churchyard and head towards something called the Grange, which is one of a few properties in Elton on the Hill that's got a connection to the hospitality industry. Now to another fabulous building, the Grange. This is a bed and breakfast these days, but it originated as a house. It was built in 1725 and still has many of its original features, such as a beautiful spiral staircase up to one of the bedrooms, known as the hayloft. This isn't a bad place to come for food, let me tell you. Should you do so, I would wholeheartedly recommend eating in the conservatory breakfast room, which looks out into the garden. They serve a full English breakfast made with local foods, such as eggs, jams and bread. Now, one thing you're likely to encounter as you walk through Elton on the Hill are plenty of buses. They're school buses and they're sharps. They're heading for Austin Primary School. And yeah, this is not the easiest road for buses to come down because it's really, really narrow. You have to stand to the side a few times. I've had to do that just to get to this point. And at this point, we're just beyond the Grange, and you can see here there's a wall where there's a lovely little castellated, not sure what it is, like a turret or something like that. Probably belongs to Elton Manor, the modern Elton Manor, as opposed to the one that burnt down. At this point, we kind of run out of village. There's not really much more. There's a couple of houses in that sort of direction, but that's effectively it. So from here, we're just going to turn around and head back. There's one important job we haven't done yet on the way back up to the car, and that's leave one of these on the parish notice board. You can find this notice board right next to the gates of Elton Manor. So, job done. Okay, so the fog is starting to lift now. It's starting to become nice and bright, which means the next village is going to look absolutely awesome. Now, to get to the next village, we need to do a bit of driving because we're not quite finished with Elton on the Hill just yet. I'm going to take you along the A52 in that direction towards another property which has connections to the hospitality industry. To finish with, we're driving past another property with connections to the hospitality industry. This is the Vale of Belvoir Inn and Hotel to the west of the village along the A52. It was originally a private house called Wotton Vale and was later a guest house called the Haven. Behind it is Jansen's Fishery and a caravan and campsite. Make no mistake about it, the Vale of Belvoir's a great place for a nice little getaway, and with welcoming little villages like Elton on the Hill, it's no wonder people love it. Come back tomorrow as we explore another, only this time it's less about tourism and more about history. I'll see you there. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.